So look, the post-fight video for Haye versus Bellew has gone up. It's been up on the channel for half an hour. I've just about calmed down. It's half midnight. I've got an early start tomorrow, but I can't bring myself to go to sleep just yet because the adrenaline's just pumping. So as I say, I made myself a cup of tea to calm myself down. And I'm got most of my thoughts about Haye versus Bellew in the main post-fight video, which, as I say, is already up in the channel. But you know, reflecting on it, a lot of credit needs to go to Tony Bellew here. A lot of credit. He took Haye's punches. He made Haye miss. He made a very good point in his post-fight interview, which is something that I wanted to cover, but I actually neglected to put into my first video, which is that he was actually showing excellent reactions in there. Really impressed by Bellew's reactions tonight. The way he was specifically docking under Haye's work and making Haye miss by just bobbing and going low, really. You know, he did that very well, Bellew. But anyway, I'm digressing. Purpose of this video is to discuss some of the undercard fights. The plan for tomorrow is to wake up in the morning, watch Furman versus Garcia without knowing the result, and then do a post-fight video on that, followed up by maybe either re-watching the Haye v Bellew fight and doing a video on that, or potentially doing a video analysing the potential next options for both men. But anyway, the purpose of this video is to discuss some of the undercard fights, and I've got to say, credit tonight from a pure matchmaking perspective goes to Eddie Hearn. I know people are going to say they didn't like the pay-per-view, they hate Eddie Hearn, they hate Matchroom, whatever. From a matchmaking perspective, Eddie Hearn has shown a real knack for getting his timing spot on. Tony Bellew, massive underdog against David Haye. I thought David Haye had far too much life left in the old dog to be beaten by a guy like Tony Bellew. But Eddie Hearn got the timing spot on with when he made the fight. David Haye, just a bit too old, just a few too many miles in the clock, just a few too many injuries, proved too much for him tonight. Ohara Davies versus Derry Matthews. Ohara Davies, a much hyped prospect, a guy who was, you know, clearly one of Matchroom's future potential stars. Put him in against Derry Matthews, who was a bigger name, I guess you could say, at this stage. But again, the timing was spot on. Davies was at a point where he's ready to step up for a guy like Derry Matthews. Derry Matthews, at the stage of his career where he posed no danger to the young lion. Egginton versus Malignaggi, a fight that I got wrong. I still thought a guy like Malignaggi would have too much ring craft and too much skill for a guy who's as raw and as green as Sam Egginton. Again, got that wrong. Eddie Hearn timed it right. All of these big fights, Hearn's three fighters, Davies, Egginton and Bellew, were victorious. All three of their opponents were potentially bigger name fighters than the home fighters. But Eddie Hearn got the timing right, and Eddie Hearn picked the fights at the right time to ensure victory for his men. Did that make for a good pay-per-view? That's the discussion that's separate. But if you're an Eddie Hearn fighter, you've got to say that your man Eddie Hearn is making the right fights at the right time. Whether that's good for the fans is another debate. But you know, Eddie Hearn, for me, he's shown that he can time these fights well. And you know, I've got to reflect on that when I'm thinking about Joshua Klitschko, because as you guys know, I'm picking Klitschko in that fight. But maybe Eddie Hearn's got the timing bang on again there. Maybe Klitschko is a bit too old now. Maybe Joshua's a bit too fresh. But let's talk about this night's cards. So let's start by talking about Dave Allen versus David Howe. Very bizarre fight that. Dave Allen came out. You know, I like Dave Allen. He's a friend of the channel, as you guys know. He didn't look very good in the first round, if I'm honest. Howe seemed to almost be outboxing him on the back foot. Howe was obviously a bigger, longer guy, sticking the jab out, timing Allen quite nicely. And yeah, Allen didn't look great in there. Allen turned up the pace in the second round. His hooks were very wide, quite looping, quite round. And Howe just seemed to have a complete psychological collapse in there. You know, I looked at David Howe's record and he's been stopped a few times, and I don't know whether he just folds mentally when the pressure starts to build or whether he's got literally no punch resistance, but Howe folded very, very tamely in a fight that up till that stage he was winning for my money. You know, Dave Allen, it wasn't the best performance from Dave Allen in there tonight, and I think he's going to need to show more than that if he wants to step up to the Ian Lewison levels. But this was a fight at short notice for Dave Allen. He didn't have time to prepare specifically for Haye, and it's great to see him keeping momentum and getting a second round KO. You know, after the fight, Eddie Hearn, Dave Allen, they seem to be trying to promote Dave Allen as a big puncher. For me, I'll ask Dave about this if we can get him back on the channel, but for me, I've never necessarily considered Dave Allen to be a dynamite puncher. I've more considered him as a boxer who can potentially move and box. So interesting to see that they're going down the route of trying to promote him in that fashion. But for me, it wasn't the most convincing performance from Dave Allen, in the sense that we know he can clean up at the David Haye level, but he's going to need to improve again to beat the Ian Lewisons and Sam Sextons of this world for my money. Ohara Davies versus Derry Matthews. Ohara Davies looked very good in there. From a technical perspective, I thought he looked quite decent. He was kind of in sparring mode for the first 2 rounds. Almost just came out, had a little look at Derry Matthews. Started to get his jab working. Started to time Derry Matthews. Matthews, I thought, looked small for 140. Ohara had that sort of... He almost boxes a bit like Adrian Broner, doesn't he? He's kind of, you know, almost like a sort of Philly Cell type defence. And, you know, he almost boxes out of a shoulder roll and, you know, pumps that jab. He picked up the first 2 rounds nicely. You could see there was a bit of sting in his punches against a smaller man, Derry Matthews. And he timed Derry quite well. He kept Derry off him quite well. Didn't really allow Derry any gaps or any routes into the fight. And then started to turn up the pace in the 3rd round. And really, once he started to do that, Derry faded very, very tamely. Derry said after the fight that he was going to retire, and I think that's the right decision. 3 losses on the trot. He's getting knocked out quite easily by young guys like Luke Campbell and Ohara Davies now, and really the writing's on the wall. So Ohara Davies goes marching on. For me, Davies is a fighter who does have the potential to compete at world level. I think he needs 2 or 3 more fights, like the Andrea Scarpa fight, that are going to take him rounds, teach him lessons, maybe against different opponents of different sizes and different styles. But Ohara Davies is a character outside the ring. He's an interesting fighter inside the ring, and I think he's a real talent for my money. Paulie Malignaggi versus Sam Egginton. I personally, and this is controversial, I had Paulie Malignaggi 5 rounds to 2 up at the time of the stoppage. Based on my Twitter, probably a survey of about 20 individuals, I felt the majority had Paulie up, but most people seem to have him either 5-2 or 4-3 up. 2 of the 3 judges had Paulie up at the time of the stoppage, and I actually thought Paulie was starting to box quite nicely in there. He was hitting Sam Egginton with the jab. He even hurt Sam Egginton at the end of the 4th round, where Sam Egginton just stuck his chin out trying to be macho and, you know, got clipped. And Egginton really needs to stop that, because I'm sure he wasn't overly hurt when he did that against Gavin or when he did that tonight against Malignaggi. But at some point, some referee's going to stop him, because it almost looks like he's unconscious in his feet when he's just standing there stationary with his chin on the air. You know, I'd be a bit concerned if I was the referee, and he's got to be real careful that no referee jumps in to try and save him there when he's, you know, actually just playing to the crowd. That round, funnily enough, that he did that, I had a very, very even round. You know, a really, really even round. Couldn't decide who to give it to. And then he let Paulie land 20 clean punches on his chin in the last 10 seconds. If this fight had gone the distance, that would have proved a very costly error if this had been close, because he gave away a round to Paulie Malignaggi for no purpose whatsoever there. Very, very amateurish stuff from Sam Egginton. But Egginton scored the knockout in the 8th round against a run of play with a piece of a shot to the body that actually, you know, absolutely knocked Paulie Malignaggi for 6. So credit to Sam Egginton. Him and Tony Bellew, you know, we're talking about overachievers in boxing. These 2 are right at the top of the pile for me. Sam Egginton, a guy losing in prize fighter. I've got to applaud Eddie Hearn for the job he's done with Egginton, you know. For Egginton to... I thought we'd seen his level when he lost to Bradley Skeet. I really did. But he's now gone out, he's beaten Frankie Gavin, he's now beaten Paulie Malignaggi. You know, he'll get a world title shot. And he's only 23. He's a beast at the weight, and he's improving as well. He's genuinely showing improvement in there. If he fails in a world title shot, he can always just step up to 154 and, you know, come again. You know, credit Sam Egginton here. You know, this is why I say Eddie Hearn's doing a good job. Bradley Skeet took the guy to school, and what's Bradley Skeet doing? He's fighting Shane Singleton at the Copper Box, you know. Whereas Egginton's gone out and beat Frankie Gavin. Egginton's gone out and beat Paulie Malignaggi. Egginton's purportedly been in the mix to fight Danny Garcia in the past, you know. This is the benefit that Eddie Hearn is currently adding to his boxers at the minute. And, you know, I got to give Egginton real credit because I thought he'd be a bit too raw and he probably lacked the technical class to beat a guy like Paulie Malignaggi. But to be fair to him, Egginton went out and, you know, even though I had him behind on my scorecard, it was a close competitive fight where he was having, you know, swaves of success. And, you know, as I say, stopped Paulie Malignaggi and probably ended Paulie Malignaggi's career. A lot of careers ended tonight. Matthew's career has ended. Malignaggi's career has ended. A lot of people speculating David Haye's career has ended, although we'll have to see. Video coming on that tomorrow, I think, most likely. Katie Taylor boxed just before the main event. Scored a stoppage in the 5th round. You know, Katie Taylor put her punches together nicely. She's still quite amateur style for me. She looked fairly good in there. Didn't appear the most naturally heavy-handed. I was worried potentially she was a bit open to being caught when she was throwing punches. The difficulty for me is I don't know the strength and depth in women's boxing because I haven't ever watched it before. So, you know, when I look at a prospect in men's boxing, I think, oh, he looks good, but I can't see him getting above British level because the British champion is X, the European champion is Y, the world champion is Z. The truth is, in women's boxing, I have no appreciation of how good the world champions are. I assume, logically, they're probably not as good, comparably, as the champions are in men's boxing because more men, presumably, take up boxing and give boxing a go, and as a result, there's probably a wider pool of people who have the potential to become champions than there are in women's boxing. Maybe my logic's flawed. Drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts on that. But what I'm getting at is, I don't look at Katie Taylor and think she's definitely going to be a world champion because I don't know how she matches up with the current world champions, but she looks fairly good in there. She puts punches together very, very nicely. In all her fights, she's been completely dominant so far. So, you know, it'd be interesting to see her against an opponent who offers something back and, you know, to see if she's as capable in a fight which is competitive as opposed to, you know, just beating up on someone who she's clearly a few levels above. But yeah, Katie Taylor obviously fighting directly before the main event. Eddie Hearn's throwing some big weight behind her to get her publicity and profile. I think he's going to stick her on the Joshua Klitschko card at Wembley, which is another huge showcase. So yeah, all in all, a very, very, very good night for Matchroom tonight. Dave Allen gets another stoppage. Egginton gets another stoppage. Ohara Davies gets another stoppage. Katie Taylor gets another stoppage. Tony Bellew gets another stoppage. Really has been a very, very good night for Matchroom boxing. You know, guys like Ohara Davies, guys like Sam Egginton pushing towards world title level now. Are they ready for it? For me, not quite yet. Both of them need another 2 or 3 fights, but they're improving fighters. And they're building a name for themselves. Let me know your thoughts on the undercard, people. Do leave your comments in the section below. Who would you like to see all the undercard fighters move on to and fight next? And what were your thoughts on this as a pay-per-view? You know, did you buy the pay-per-view? Do you think it was a good night's boxing? You know, did any of these fights particularly entertain you? Let me know your thoughts in the section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel or you haven't done so before for whatever reason, please take the time to hit subscribe so you can check out all my other stuff. My icon is on the screen now, probably around here, so click on that and you can subscribe. And do check out my post-fight video, Haye vs Bellew, which was uploaded to the channel immediately before this one. Thanks for watching.